Sir, there's somebody coming. Evening, Jim.
Greetings, fanboys and fangirls. Jared here with another review from Fanboys Forever. Today we're going to be having a look at two newer Spin Master Batman figures, and then one of the older ones. Now, the reason for this is because I'm trying to play catch-up, actually, so that I can be prepared for the new wave of Spin Master stuff that is coming out very, very quickly for the second half of 2021. So this is definitely a time for me to get caught up on the Bat Tech line. We're going to go ahead and start with our two sidekicks back here. Nightwing and Robin. These are both repaints of previous versions of these characters that we've seen. So let's go ahead and have a look. We're going to start with Nightwing. Here's the packaging. It's nothing that we haven't seen before in the Bat Tech line for 2021. And on the back, we see our figures. I have found all of these except for Batgirl, which tends to elude me. Let's go ahead and see what accessories we have. Nothing. So usually what happens is that means it's fallen down to the next one, so we'll see. Up here we have two of Nightwing's like gloves that come with the batons, and these are kind of the frosted versions, which it's so funny to me because I always say that this stuff looks more like Mr. Freeze kind of gear instead of tech gear. And yep, sure enough, the other accessory fell down. And here we have what looks very similar to Batman's little launcher that he uses in The Dark Knight. We have another launcher like we've seen before in the line with a big fin on it. And here's one that if I had seen it before that I guess I've forgotten about it, but I'm not sure I've ever really seen this one. It's like a buzzsaw, so it's kind of interesting. Even has a peg over here, so that's kind of different. We'll have to look at this a little more closely. And of course with Wave 2 you get this mini poster, the big picture of Batman, and on the back you get a little guide to the other figures in the line. And here we have our new Nightwing outside of his packaging. And what's not immediately apparent when you first look at this is that this is indeed transparent plastic. So this is meant to be more of like, I think like he's in like the techie world or like in a computer or something. You can see it most clearly in the torso. You can see my finger back there with the translucence. And the legs and the arms are translucent as well, but it's just not as noticeable. But I think that this leads to a pretty cool look for the figure, and I'm glad that they did something to make it different, aside from just having the little techie bits, which, you know, they're neat, but I'm glad that there's a little something more there, and the translucence was that little extra piece. And here he is with his Eskrima, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, sticks. And I think this looks really good. I actually like the way that the gauntlets look connected to this. So I think that this is pretty neat. So it looks nice, and it's definitely a fun way to pose this particular figure. With this newer Buzzsaw Gun accessory, he can hold it traditionally with his handle right here, and that's all well and good. But he also has a peg for the back as well. So if you want him to have some weapon storage, he can definitely have that. I wish there was a little more to it than that, but that appears to be the only reason he has a peg in that particular accessory. And then after that, you can use his two launchers. Now, this figure does seem accessory laden, and I do feel like that this includes more accessories and more plastic per figure, I guess, than any that I've seen so far in the line. It's like there was just a ton of stuff in there. I'm very surprised it all even fit in. No wonder things were falling into the next compartment. But this guy is loaded down. If you really want him to be, he can definitely be prepared for just about anything. So I actually really like the accessories loadout. Since Nightwing is the first of the three that I'm looking at today, I will be showing you the articulation on him and him alone. There's really no other reason to show you the articulation on the others because it's exactly the same. His head can rotate, can't really go up and down. There is a really good hinge at the shoulder. It can go more than 90 degrees. It can rotate all the way around. He does have a single joint there, but it's a pretty good one. He can rotate the arm as well. There's nothing at the waist, unfortunately. He does have a thigh cut. The leg can go up pretty good. Splits can go absolutely crazy with those. He is a gymnast, so that's important. There is a swivel at the knee, and he does have a single joint, but it's a really good one. Nothing at the ankle. That's something I would really like to see them add, but I understand because this is aimed at younger collectors. I always feel it's important to compare each character to their previous versions, except with Batman. But if you're talking about the Spin Master line, if you're wanting to compare Batman to all of his previous versions, you'll be there all day. And so here is the standard Nightwing that started the line, and this is the red chase variant that they did. And here is the rare chase variant that they did in red to reflect his comic costume at the time. And I think they look really good together. Certainly very cool to see them all like this. I will say that this new one is probably not my favorite that they've done. I'm a sucker just for the classic look, so I'm always going to come back to this blue and black right here. But I do think that it's neat that they have a techier version that can go with Batman's new team. And speaking of Batman's upgraded team, here they are in their tech armor. Although I do find this Nightwing a little more interesting than the Batwoman repaint that they did, I still don't know if they did quite enough to make him different. I think that the goal wasn't so much to differentiate this figure from the original release, but instead to give younger collectors another way to own Nightwing. If they missed that one the first time, and if they see this at Walmart, it can be one that you can grab pretty easy. If you're a completist like me, of course it's a no-brainer that you're going to grab him, but at the same time, I think you would be just as well off with that original figure, if not better. In some ways, I feel like Spin Master hasn't quite perfected Nightwing just yet. If you look, the original's bird shape, for lack of a better term, on the chest isn't quite right, and it's kind of flat. However, with the red variant that they did, they fixed that. And now, with a new version, they have that fixed shape, and it looks really nice, but now they've added all the techie stuff and the translucence, so it can't quite be regular Nightwing. And he also has the blue gloves. I feel like if some of these attributes were to be transferred over to this one, then you would have pretty much that perfect Nightwing figure. So it's just something to think about for the future. With Nightwing out of the way, we'll now be looking at the new Robin variant that they've come out with. So the packaging is just what you would expect, of course, from the BatTech series. And on the back, you can see all of the figures from the line. Let's go ahead and look in the utility belt pouches, as I refer to them. And in our first pouch, looks like we get the kind of long staff that Robin comes packed with in many of these releases. It has that frosted look. And at the bottom, it looks like he has a radar dish gun done in kind of a lighter variation of that plastic with the specs. And at the top, you get Robin's jetpack that he is often packed with in these releases. And here we have Robin right out of the packaging. This is, to me, clearly the Damian Wayne version of Robin. I think the head sculpt definitely gives it away, even though he is a little too tall to be Damian. Of course, we've discussed this in previous videos, but still, it's something that I think is still an interesting topic of discussion. You can see right away that he has all the techie bits that we've been talking about all through this line. And that's just kind of a running theme for the line and just their visual motif that I think they have going. And if you look, he actually is, and it's very hard to tell with this one, even more so than Nightwing. Believe it or not, this is translucent right back here. So yes, even though it's a darker plastic, it's something I couldn't have really told right away unless I was looking for it. But you can see that when my finger is behind like the little blades, the spikes, and the gauntlet, that you can see it just a little bit through there, and that's the thinnest point of plastic. Especially if you put these in front of a light, you can easily tell. Here you can even sort of see the inner workings of the figure on the torso, so that's just something to keep in mind. On the side, we also have more of that techie detail. As a matter of fact, I will say that overall, I really enjoy the paint application on this figure. It's very pleasant to me. It's just interesting to look at, and I think it's really nice. The head sculpt is a little sharper than I'm used to seeing it, and I'm really, really liking the look of the green mask with this particular head, and it's because it's more accurate to Damian's mask in the comics, and I definitely think this is the color form that is the most accurate. I also like the sculpting on the boots and the kind of armored portions, and especially the gauntlets there. I think they kind of remind me of some of Batman's movie costumes. As you can see, all that interesting sculpting continues, and also on the back as well. I think it's very important with this Robin to do a comparison of previous versions that we've seen. Believe it or not, there are many more versions of Robin than even the ones I'm pulling out to show you right now, but these are the ones I have on hand that I think are closer to this version. Here he is with the original first release of Robin. Here is the second hooded release of Robin. And here he is alongside the first tech version of Robin that we got. I feel that Spin Master has been mostly successful with their implementation of Robin in this line. It seems like they're always doing interesting things with the colors and doing interesting things with the sculpt. I'm never actually bored by the Robin sculpts or by the color patterns that they choose, and I think that this new one is no exception. Unlike Nightwing, who is just a very moderate difference and isn't particularly exciting at sculpting or paint application, I think this Robin has a lot to offer. I mean, pretty much these are the more traditional comic book Robins right here, but if we remove them from the equation, what you're really looking for here is which one is the better of the two tech-based variants. And I think both of them have some good things going for them. I think if you are more into like the red Robin variants that we've seen in the past, I definitely think that this is the one to go with. And I've done videos about that before because, you know, that seems like something that you should do a YouTube video about. And this is him alongside the red versions of those previous 2020 Robins that we talked about. But this new one is meant to continue in the traditions of the more green Robins that we had seen previously. So it is pretty tidy how Spin Master definitely has a very strong focus on offering in each of the Robin sculpts the black and red version and then the green and red version. And it's especially easy to tell by the color of the mask. If it's got a black mask, it's the red and black variant. If it's got the green mask, then it's the red and green variant. But I just feel like this is neat, and if you're like me and you're a crazy completist, it's really cool to have them on the shelf or in the Batcave for that matter together like that. And if we look, these accessories are really interesting. And even though his accessories are kind of neat, I feel like that this one is the only one that Robin would probably actually use, since we see him with the bow staff a lot in this line. And it looks okay. Perhaps if the blue had been made to match maybe what's on the shirt and the shoulders a little bit more closely, it would have looked better. Also, he does have a jetpack, and I think that actually looks pretty cool in the back, although those specs look a little messy. I might have been happier if it was just one solid color, honestly. I have to say, I do think this is a little bit better than the previous Robin that we got. Although the other Robin has a little bit more color variance, and I do wish this one had some paint on the boots or the gauntlets for that matter, I think that this one is a little bit more pleasing. So I definitely suggest this one if you can only get one tech version of Robin. And here is the new Bat family all together in their Bat tech looks. I think they look really nice. And with our final figure today, we're going to go back to the past just a little bit. We're thinking back to a beloved year in our history, 2020, when this was how Spin Master releases looked. It was the gray packaging, and we just had the name at the bottom. Actually, it's amazing how much better the new packaging looks than this. This was very, very basic. And this was the deal where it was what mission were you going to get. And the line was structured quite a bit differently at that time. And there was a box in the front where the accessories were. You just pulled this tab, and you unfolded that. And it looks like he is fighting the Joker. And this is when you would actually get a card. Now, that is something I really do miss. I really liked being able to tear these cards out. I just thought this was a great way to add a little bit more value to each figure. Shame they don't do it anymore. I also really miss these little filing cabinets. I actually thought these were really cool, and they were a heck of a lot more satisfying to punch out than the new ones are. So you get this one, and what's in there? You get a shield, and it looks like it has a little bit of almost like a metallic-y, yellowy flaking in there. So that's interesting. It almost has a gold look to it. Next one. You get this. You get a bright green, like neon yellow Batarang. Even though I can't really show it effectively on camera, it does glow in the dark, it seems. And one last one. What do we get? We get a Grappling Launcher. Now, I always liked getting the armor pieces from that original series, so it's a shame there wasn't any armor pieces. But these are really cool, and I actually do like this weird, like, gold color that almost has some, like, green or something brushed onto it. It's kind of neat. I like it. And then on the other side, you would have a little character guide with all the different accessories and what you could get and all the other versions. Unfortunately, this was also maddening, and I don't really think they do this anymore with alternative accessory loadouts for even like the same figure, so that's actually a good thing in my opinion. I got this version of Rare Batman up here where he has all the green accessories, but I could have gotten the one where he had all of the rare accessories. And once again, this leads to the aggravation I always talk about, because I really probably would have liked those red versions of the accessories and feel like it would have made a lot more sense with what is essentially Flashpoint Batman, and we'll get into that. So you may be asking yourself, why am I reviewing this old Batman figure from 2020? And why wasn't it back then when I did all my other reviews for that wave of product? Well, the simple answer is that I was never able to find this guy upon his initial release in late 2020. I kept seeing online where lots of other people were finding him, but he never ever came to any retail establishment that I was ever in. I would have snatched him up immediately, but it never happened. So indeed, this was very rare in my area, and it's obvious why. For anybody who reads the comics in the Flashpoint storyline, where the Flash visits an alternate reality where everything is pretty different, he finds this alternate version of Batman that is not Bruce Wayne, but instead his father, Thomas Wayne. And in that version of the story, it's that Bruce was killed that night in Crime Alley, and so his father became Batman to avenge his son's death, which is a fascinating concept. And I think there's a lot of love for Flashpoint Thomas Wayne Batman, and that is definitely the reason why this got made. There's a couple of things, though, that's kind of strange with this. Obviously, that is not what Spin Master intends this to necessarily be. You can see in the artwork that he's just fighting the Joker as normal, and on the packaging it says nothing about being an alternative reality Batman or anything like that. This is just treated like an alternate costume, as if it were a video game where you have alternative skins and it's all the same character wearing them. So I do believe that this is just Bruce Wayne wearing a costume inspired by his father's outfit in the alternate reality. So I know that may be a lot to wrap your head around, but I think that's where they're going with this. So, however, if you want to tell yourself it's Thomas Wayne Batman, I think that's fine too. One of the things that's a little different about the comic book appearance is he, of course, doesn't have the crazy 5 o'clock shadow on the face where he has kind of grown out his facial hair a little bit. But there's also no big red circle behind the bat, and I think that's a shame because I would have liked to have seen that. It is interesting to me that that is something that Spin Master just will not touch with these Batman figures. And I don't know if that's a directive from DC themselves or what, but it appears that there isn't a single Batman figure that they've done that has an oval around the bat symbol. So that's kind of weird. I feel like that it almost has to be some kind of directive from publishing not to do that, because out of all the variants they've done, I think a classic comic book Batman, I think that would be easy money, and I think lots of collectors would be interested in that too. So just something that I've noticed. Overall, I do think they've done a pretty good job replicating that costume from the comics. Of course, they're just using their standard Batman buck. As a matter of fact, here he is alongside their regular Batman. Nothing is different here in terms of sculpting. And there's one interesting illusion that they've done with paint. They have just painted on where the holsters would be where he has his pistols. That's right, this Batman is packing in the comics. I do appreciate that they darkened down the gray quite a bit. And I think that that makes a big difference in terms of the coloration being accurate to the comics. However, it is kind of a shame that they weren't able to sculpt some little pouches down here on the sides to be holsters, but that's not exactly how a younger collector's line like this really works, is it, when it comes to tooling budget. With this accessory, this was one of the very first that I'd gotten in the line. This actually comes apart and you can use it as 2 blades. I don't necessarily think it looks right with this figure though, with this color. That's why I definitely think that they should have all just been the red version. It's kind of a shame, really, because I was really wanting that one. Here's the Grappling Gun, which I do think looks good. And I actually like this gold version quite a bit. And of course, let's not kid ourselves, this version of the Batarang with him is pretty nonsensical looking, even if it's glow in the dark. Of course, we may as well be frank here. The one notable omission from his accessories are his 2 twin pistols. I do think that they could have found a way to have done kind of a fun, techie, like oversized, silly version of them that wouldn't have been so offensive or anything like that. But I definitely understand why it was not done, and I have a feeling that it may have been a directive from publishing and DC themselves that they really couldn't necessarily do this version of the character wholesale in a kid's action figure line like this, and instead we see him more in the McFarlane line. Overall, I do think he's a fine addition, and it feels good to really add a little bit more completion to that first year of product for me, because I struggled and struggled to find him. How was I able to get him? Well, I broke down and paid a third-party seller on Walmart.com for him. I think I just gave $15 shipped, though, and that's not so bad. So I was definitely willing to do that. Let's hope that I don't end up in the same situation with the Batgirl figure from year 2 of these products. Guys, I sure do thank you for joining me today. I've had a lot of fun going back through these products, especially the Flashpoint Batman from year one there. I really enjoyed talking about one of the old year one figures. Of course, make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss out on all of the brand new Spin Master Batman videos that I have coming. All right, guys, thank you all so much for watching. God bless you and yours. Follow us on Twitter, and I'll see you on Fanboys Forever. Fanboy out.